So, Nigel, good morning. Lovely to see you again. This is our third conversation on a podcast. So, I feel that I know you quite well now, but some of our
Yeah.
listeners might not. So, please just introduce yourself, first of all.
Yeah. Great to see you, Janet. Really good to be on again. I can't believe it's third time. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm Nigel Jones. I'm the author of Walking Back to Happiness, The Secret to Alcohol-Free Living and Wellbeing. I'm a therapist. I'm an NLP practitioner and a life coach. And I've been alcohol-free for about 1,600 days. So I guess like almost 4.5 years.
Fantastic. Well done. Yeah. I think the first time we talked, you were just 2 years. So, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's fly by. Yeah. I'm going to put the link to our other interviews in the show notes, obviously, but just give us a quick summary of your story, your drinking story, how it started and how it evolved over the years.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I drank for the best part of 35 years. So it wasn't until I was in my early 50s that I said, I'm done. This is it. I'm moving on from this. But if we look back on my story, I guess I started drinking in my mid-teens, growing up in Wales, and it just went through into university and went through into working life, and I just kept drinking. Everyone's story is different in terms of the amount they drink. But for me, I was drinking probably about a bottle of wine a day during the week. And then on the weekends, a bit more. And that might have a few beers put in there as well, and a couple of glasses of whiskey or whatever. So what I worked out is I was drinking something like a liter of neat alcohol a week just by adding up all the alcohol which is contained in the wine and the beer. And over a year, that was 52 liters of neat alcohol. It's a crazy amount when you look at it from that perspective. When I wrote the book, Walking Back to Happiness, the first chapter I wrote was this chapter called the alcoholometer, which is a measure of how much neat alcohol you consume. It was one of the major turning points for me, a realization when I had perspective on my drinking, that I was drinking that much, because I think most people don't even question the amount of alcohol they're actually consuming in these contained in the bottle of wine or the glass of beer. And when you look at it in that way, it was 52 liters is crazy. It's like a bath full of booze. If you poured that down your throat, which I was doing every year, really should be dead. It's like crazy. It's what are you doing to yourself? That was like the realization for me, or part of the realization, which I'll come on to talk a bit more about as we go through. But drinking really, I think it just became ingrained, and it was ingrained from an early age, because that's what society does. It ingrains booze as being normal. It's normalized.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere, isn't it? It's like we drink when we celebrate, we drink when we're unhappy. So it's births, deaths, marriages, everywhere. There's an excuse to have a drink. So my story is one of regular drinking for 35 years. And I guess being in my early 50s, my body just couldn't keep up with that anymore. I wanted to live, basically. I see my grandkids. Yeah, I just had to stop. Yeah, that's the
I
story.
remember your before picture. You were really inflated, weren't you? And you lost
Yeah, I mean,
weight when
it was crazy. I was probably 4.5, 5 stone overweight. Outside, I didn't look good. Inside, it was terrible as well. Literally, you put on a brave face, but yeah, it was not good drinking that much alcohol. You feel down. There's anxiety. Your sleep is terrible. You don't really get a good night's sleep.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about how you quit, because I often tell your story in my community, and a lot of ladies really like this. I am a non-drinker from day one. So talk
Yeah,
through
sure.
that.
Yeah, of course. So what happened with me was literally, I tried many times to stop drinking over my 35-year career with the booze. And I realized what I was doing wrong, because on these day ones, as I call them, I must have had about 1,000 day ones over 35 years. The day one is when you wake up and you think, God, I drank so much that night before. I've just got to stop. I got through day one, don't know how many times, not many, maybe 300 or 400 day ones. Day two was like a really great day, because you'd had one day off the booze and you felt really good. And it was like, well, I'm going to keep going. Well, I very rarely got to day three. I think the longest I went in the whole of that time was 6 days, and I only did that twice in 35 years. And what was I doing wrong? Because why was I failing all the time? The reality was, it was all about my mindset. And this is so powerful. If you take one thing away from this, it's this, and it's literally the way you label yourself or what you call yourself determines what is going to go on for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
We basically become our thoughts. What we think, it develops our emotions, and our emotions becomes our behavior. So I decided that on day one, on the successful time I've done it, which I'm now 4.5 years into this, I was going to become a non-drinker on day one. I wasn't a drinker trying to become alcohol free.
Yeah.
I was actually a non-drinker from day one. I was there. And I always use this sort of metaphor of the mountain, because when you have the mindset of a drinker trying to become a non-drinker, you believe that alcohol freedom is at the top of some sort of mountain that you've got to go on this huge journey to get to, using loads of willpower, and it's going to be a real struggle. The mind creates all these struggles for you. It just adds them up and adds them up and adds them up. And in the end, you say, I can't do this. And you crack. That's where I was going wrong. So what I did very simply was I put myself on top of the mountain. I said to myself, there isn't going to be like some hard journey to get here. I'm already there. I made the decision to become alcohol free. I made the decision a second ago to be an alcohol free person and live an alcohol free life. So I don't have to get there. I am there. And that's the massive difference. Because once you believe that, then everything else is easy. Because when you're at the top, you don't have the climb. And if you do fall a little bit, and by that I mean you might get a craving or think, oh God, I'd really fancy a drink, you're still at the top. So you only have to step back up to where you are. You don't have to climb all the way up there. What supports all this, and the foundation behind this thought and this way of thinking, is really understanding the power of intention. There is a Buddhist saying, which is, we live our lives at the tip of intention. And this is a very powerful statement of how this all works. And you can stop drinking based on this one saying. And really, if you unpack that, what it says is that if you intend to drink, like I intend to have a glass of wine, I'll pick the glass of wine up and I'll drink it. And that's the deed. So if you intend to do the deed, you'll do the deed. And if you do the deed enough, it becomes your habit. And if that habit continues, it becomes your character. And if that goes on, it becomes your destiny. So you can see really quickly from an intention of picking up a glass of wine, my destiny is set out before me. Look at the other side of that, flip the coin. If your intention was to go for a run and you did that daily and that became your habit, it would actually change your character, and your destiny would be to become someone who was very fit and conscious and health conscious about their body. So these intentions determine whether you're at the top or the bottom of the mountain, basically. So if you literally say, what is behind intention? What actually makes me pick the glass of wine up? The DNA of intention is values and beliefs. And values are the compass, the direction of where you want to go, the direction of your heart. And beliefs are the assumptions that you hold to be true. So who says that alcohol is good for you? Who says that alcohol gives you a great night's sleep? It's just an assumption. And if you have that belief and you believe it, then you will be at the bottom of the mountain. But if you believe that actually it's poison and it's just dressed up and sweetened, then you're at the top of the mountain, because once you change your belief system, basically the core beliefs you have are your identity. So your identity is made up of really big, solid beliefs. And those beliefs change your identity. And when you change your identity, you can change anything. So shall I go to the pub or shall I have a drink? It's not important if you're a non-drinker, you really believe you're one. If you're a vegetarian, you've never eaten meat, why the hell would I go and have a burger? I just wouldn't do it. That's a behavior. Because at the top of the pyramid, my identity is, I don't eat meat. I'm a non-drinker. I just don't drink alcohol because I believe it will kill me. It's poison. And once you have that identity change, stopping drinking, it's a nothing. It's really easy to do because you just don't believe that.
I remember you were in marketing. It's the marketing industry, the liquor industry that plant these beliefs in the first place. That's why we grow up believing that alcohol is fun. We need alcohol. And that's reinforced, of course, by peer pressure, because us drinkers, I think we tend to gravitate towards other drinkers. So, as a hypnotherapist, talk about how you help people overturn those beliefs.
Yeah, of course. I wrote the book basically because I wanted to help as many people as possible. I wanted to share this secret that I discovered, which was it is easy to stop drinking if you know how to do it. And I wrote how I did it in the book. And having done that, I decided to retrain as a coach. And in that whole process of training, I discovered hypnotherapy as well as NLP, neuro linguistic programming. I realized I was using a lot of the skills and tools of these subjects without knowing this was part of hypnotherapy or part of NLP. And so to study it and to really understand it and then help others use these tools became central to what I do. So that's what I do these days. In answer to the question, how can hypnotherapy help? It's important to take a step back and understand what hypnotherapy is, because a lot of people don't know what it is, or they have a misbelief of it because they're misinformed, because people's belief of hypnotherapy is based on TV shows normally, when someone is grabbed out of the audience and taken onto a stage and told to forget their name, or literally, I'm going to count to 10, but the number 5 won't exist. And everyone in the audience is laughing at them or laughing with them or whatever. It's not that at all. It's basically helping a client go into their subconscious mind and change the programs that run them so they're beneficial to their health. If you take, for example, let's take how the mind works. We have about 60 to 65% of the things we do every day, even just sitting here talking to you now, are habitual. The way you sit in a chair, the way you breathe, it's all run by programs that are operating in your subconscious mind. And drinking can actually become a program that actually runs in your subconscious mind. Oh, it's Friday, I'm going to have a drink. Oh, it's Christmas, or whatever it is, I'm going to have a drink. It's a program.
Yeah.
And so that program runs in the subconscious part of the mind. And what hypnotherapy does, it allows you to actually access that program and change it. So let's take a good metaphor for this, which is an iceberg. The bit that's above the water is the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And that makes decisions and it's fully aware, and it's what we're doing now. We're conscious. But 95% of that iceberg is below the actual water. And that's the subconscious mind. And really, to make changes in your life, you need to get into the subconscious mind. Now, information obviously goes in there. Think of the bit above the water as almost like the bouncer at the nightclub standing on the door, deciding what goes in and what goes out. Someone tells you something new for the first time. Do you believe it? Oh, I don't believe that, because the bouncer at the door has decided he's not coming in. So someone might say to you, do you know alcohol? It's not very good for you at all. And I'm not going to believe that, because actually I know it's all right. So your conscious mind will actually push stuff off. It won't allow it in. But when you go into hypnotherapy session, it allows you to move the bouncer away from the door and actually access all the goodies inside and all the programs. And that's when you can start making the changes and actually starting looking at it from perspective. I suppose what hypnotherapy gives you is perspective. So when we go about our day-to-day lives, we have perception. And that is, I perceive this, I perceive this. It's only when you take perspective, which is when you step outside yourself and look at what you're doing, look at it from another angle, that you actually take things forward and you can change the way you are. And so in answer to the question, hypnotherapy is a very powerful science, I would say, to helping someone change the programs that run their lives. The way the subconscious mind works is very much on metaphor. It speaks the language of metaphor. So let's take an example. If you look at the brain, operates on cycles per second. In the conversation we're having now, our brains are basically operating on roughly between 15 to 30 cycles per second, which means we're wide awake and it's very quick activity. When you meditate or you go into a meditative trance, your brain cycles drop down between 8 and 14. So that's when you're sitting, you're trying to clear your mind and you're listening to your breath or sound of the birds. So you've slowed your mind down. When you're asleep, your cycles actually have dropped between 1/2 and 3. And that's when your mind is resting. The hypnodial state is between 3.5 and 7. So it's just below meditation and it's just above sleep. So at that level, the conscious mind moves out of the way and you're allowed to access the actual unconscious mind. So think of it as accessing those programs when you're actually in a hypnotic trance. You can use lots of different metaphors, but one I find very powerful when working with clients in hypnosis who've come to see me regarding stopping drinking is to say, imagine that you're walking a tightrope and the tightrope is drinking. And everybody knows deep down it's a bit risky. They know there's a health side to it, hence the analogy or the metaphor of the tightrope. So you ask the client to think of drinking as walking their life on a tightrope. And effectively, every drink that they have loosens or cuts one of the ropes that is holding the safety net beneath them. And that safety net is their health.
Yeah.
And they can have lots and lots of drinks, but every one that they drink will actually sever one of the strings that's holding that safety net underneath them. And then one day they'll have one drink that clicks the net and it's gone, and they fall and they're gone. There's no net there. There's no health net to actually save them. That's very powerful because that then sinks into the program that's running in your mind around alcohol. And people then will start to look at drinks as affecting their health. And that's a powerful metaphor suggestion to make to the unconscious mind as part of the whole package to actually start changing your beliefs around alcohol.
Yeah.
So
very powerful.
hypnotherapy is very powerful
Yeah.
in the way of changing your mind.
I love your bouncer analogy. I should remember that. How do you get people into the right state? How do you slow that brain down so that they are more open to what you're saying to them?
Everyone who is in a hypnotherapy session has come to the session to go into trance. They're not going to fight it because they've paid to go into a trance. And so the way it's done is you slow their mind. You take them into a meditation. So you'll ask them to close their eyes and relax and feel relaxation running throughout their body. Very simply, what you do is you ask the client to close their eyes and relax the muscles around their eyes, so much so that they can't open their eyes. And then you take that relaxation, which is called catalepsy, a localized relaxation, and ask them to spread it right down throughout their body. Where the number forget comes from, which is basically used in stage hypnosis, is it allows the therapist to know what level of trance that the client has got into. So if I ask the client to count back from 10 to 1 and forget the number 7, and they do, then I'll know that they're at a certain level of trance. And it allows me to know how deep they've gone in the actual trance. And because there are different levels where you can treat different things. So it's again, like a metaphor here. If you think of there's a fire in a building and the fire's on the 4th floor, you send the fire brigade to the 4th floor to put the fire out. But if you know it's on the 3rd floor, you send them to the 3rd floor. And it's very similar in hypnotherapy. If you want to help a client cure something like habit change, you only have to go to the 3rd floor. Whereas if it's something deeper, like a deep childhood trauma, then you might need to go to the 4th floor. So it's just that number change comes from that. They've used it to make it like a stage thing, but that's where it originally comes from.
Yeah, interesting. And talk to us about NLP. Do you use that as well to help people stop drinking?
Yeah, all the time. So NLP is probably one of the most powerful things that you can ever learn. Again, the analogy I use on this is our human brains. They are definitely the most powerful supercomputer that exists on the planet at the moment. It's hugely powerful, but, and this is the big but, it doesn't come with an instruction manual. And NLP is probably the closest science there is, or the tools there are to actually understanding how the mind works. And it's so powerful, and it can really be used in stopping drinking. One of the most powerful things, I think, in NLP is the ability to travel in time. So if you think about our fears and anxieties, anxiety is a fear of something that's not yet happened. It's a fear of the future. But memories, the way our brains work, are made up of codes. And the brain finds it very hard to distinguish between something that's happened and has not happened. So if you believe it's happened, then it has happened. So what we could do with NLP is actually take a client on a future timeline to the future to feel the event, to experience the event, to see it, to smell it, to taste it, to be around who's around there. So you could take someone, let's go a year from now into the future, and you've had the best year of your life. You stop drinking for 365 days. And you say to the client, where are you? What do you look like? Who are you with? Tell me about how you're feeling. Really soak it up. And they're building a new memory of what it's like to be 1 year alcohol free. And you really let them believe it. You hold them there for 5-10 minutes, telling them everything about this memory, what's happened, what you look like, where you live, what the year was like, the whole story. And then you can anchor that by simply squeezing a finger and thumb together and let that feeling go throughout your whole body. And remember, whenever you squeeze your finger and thumb, that feeling will come back to you. And when you bring the client back to now, just simply squeezing the finger and thumb will give them the feeling of what it was like to be 1 year alcohol free. And that's really powerful because now they have a memory of what it's like. And if there was any anxiety about, I can't do it, or it's going to be tough, you're starting to build around that and say, look, actually, you have done it. You've been there. You saw what it was like. And so you're actually using NLP tools to actually change people's beliefs about alcohol and themselves and their identities.
I remember going on a kind of NLP weekend once, like a workshop thing. And the trainer there gave us all a huge sheet of paper, and she was talking about your future self in a year's time. What would your ideal life be like? I think there were some magazines there. We stuck some on and we drew, and it was a bit like a vision board. But I remember doing this, and she didn't do the anchoring, actually. That must be very powerful. But just seeing it. And then I remember I came home with this A3 sheet and I bunged it in a drawer and forgot about it. And then I discovered it sometime later, and I realized that most of those things had happened. So there's just something about showing your mind where you want to go.
Yeah, there's a really powerful thing that's going on here. So basically, what you think becomes your reality. If I asked you to think about your right foot at the moment, you're now thinking about your right foot. You haven't been thinking about your right foot all day, but it's been there. So now, actually, your thoughts have become your reality. Your reality is now focused on your right foot. But if I asked you to think about you're going to become a successful photographer in a year's time, you start thinking about that. But if you think about it every day, you will become a successful photographer. You change your reality by the way you think.
Yeah, it's back to your I am a non-drinker, isn't it?
Yeah, so the mantras and what you say to yourself. So this is a very powerful part of NLP, is the language that you use on yourself. The voice dialogue that you're having dictates where you're going. If you say, today's going to be a great day, then there's more chance of it being a great day than if you wake up and say, oh God, it's another day. I'm so down. You determined your reality by what you think, and it's so true. And what's going on psychologically and within the brain is we have something called the rhetorical activating system, which thank God is actually shortened to RAS, R-A-S. And this is basically the looking out for you. And it's basically a prover, a thinker prover. And so your RAS, it's literally making sure that you stay alive.
Yeah.
It's looking for the fear or flight, and it's always on guard. If you ask it a question, it will try to find the answer. A lot of listeners will probably have had the experience that they're trying to remember the name of an actor or an actress in a movie, and they can't think of it at all. And then 3 days later, they're washing the dishes or out for a walk and they go, Tom Cruise, right? So, and that is because they asked themselves the question, who was the actor? And in the background, the brain was continually looking and looking and looking for it. And then it gave you the answer.
Yeah.
So if you know that is the program that runs your body, then if you ask yourself the right questions, you're going to get the answers. So if you ask yourself, how could I stop drinking? How am I going to achieve this? Tell me like 3 great things I can do. The answers will get thrown up because your mind will be working on them. And so asking the right questions is a great tip to actually just fill in with what your body naturally does. I am going to do a year alcohol free. How am I going to do it? Tell me. It'll work on it. And I'll tell you, you'll get the answers. And you'll be surprised. If it's, oh my God, why am I thinking that way? You're thinking that way because you've asked yourself that question.
Yeah, I remember a neuroscientist saying that we've got to learn to manage our brains or our brain will manage us. And she was referring back to how when we're in our caves thousands of years ago, we were wired to look out for danger because there was lots of danger and wild animals, etc. And our brains are still wired like that, aren't they? We're still looking for risks. So the more that we can change our beliefs and be positive, then the less we're likely to spend all day worrying about a wild animal coming to eat us or not getting a project done in time, which is the modern day equivalent.
Completely. And one of the key things to have power over your thoughts is to change your state. So if you're upbeat and you're aware, you're going to actually have better thoughts. You can prime yourself each day. You can look in the mirror and say, I am a non-drinker. This is what I do. Grateful for today. Thank you for today. I tell yourself, I love myself like this. I love myself becoming a healthy person. It's really positive. And then that gives you a higher state, because when we're emotional, we remember things and they go in. It's like everyone can remember where they were when Elvis died or Kennedy was shot or something big happened, 9/11. And the reason why you can remember that is because your emotional state is high. And so therefore the bouncers moved out of the way and bang, it all goes in and you remember it.
Wow,
So if you can actually, this is really powerful stuff, right? So in sessions, I tend to say to a client, a lot of therapists will actually relax patients. Actually, it's better to get you up, to get you like really awake, because when you're awake, you remember.
Wow. Yeah. I can remember when Kennedy was shot and I was about 6.
Yeah, but you see these events, right? It's amazing. Like people remember these things. And the reason is because your emotional state is high. Yeah. You were probably told by your mum and dad, oh, look, the president's been shot.
Yeah, because I could see how upset they were.
Yeah. And so everyone's emotional and so everything's going. And so if you get emotional, if you change your state, you go into an emotional. So if you're in a calm, confident, joyous state, things will be remembered and they'll get ingrained more into your belief system and your memory and your program.
Yeah. Let's go back to something that we talked about on a previous podcast. The tribalism of drinking. And you've got a name for the drinking tribe, haven't you? What do you call it?
Yes. So this was one of the earliest things I thought about when I stopped was tribalism, because I think it's key to stopping drinking. Humans, by their very nature, live in tribes. If you look at our history or our evolution, if you weren't in a tribe, you would die. You literally had to be in a tribe because they all looked out for each other.
So there's wild animals again.
Yeah, some would go and kill them, some would cook them, some would like do the shelter. It was literally tribalism. And if you decided to leave the tribe, almost without question, literally would be the end of you because there would be no protection left for you. I thought that alcohol was similar because it's very tribal. I call it the Alcohol Drinkers Tribe, or the ADT in the book, which is a big tribe. There's in the UK, there are 30 million members and they're all looking after each other because that's what tribes do. Because you close in and you say, yeah, drinking's good. Drinking's all right. I drink. Why not? And if someone says, I'm not going to have a drink, and that's a big problem for the tribe initially. It's what? Why? What's wrong with you? So all the tribe stuff is coming out. And if you analyze tribes, the way they work, it's like the opinions of the tribe are actually valued higher than those on the outside of the tribe. So if the drinkers say it's okay, then it is okay. And if someone is in another tribe, a non-drinking tribe, which I call the alcohol-free tribe, they're different. Don't believe what they say because they're another tribe. So when I was actually writing the book and doing all this sort of thinking about the tribalism around booze, I realized really early on, like in the first few days, that when you leave the tribe, the alcohol drinkers tribe, you have to join another tribe really quickly. And that's why what you're doing with Tribe Sober is really powerful, because you're giving people the opportunity to join an alcohol-free tribe, because they need tribes to survive.
Absolutely.
And it's great that you exist, because that's perfect. It's like organizations like yourself literally are pushing forward the alcohol-free movement. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Yeah,
powerful
'cause
stuff.
we can see when people join us the first time they're on a Zoom cafe or something, they're so relieved to discover
Yeah.
it's not just them, that they're not broken, and that there is fun and laughter, etc., in the alcohol-free tribe. We're not a bunch of weirdos or a cult or anything. So it's fascinating. And I love the way that when people join our tribe and they introduce themselves, they often cry and they're quite okay to be vulnerable, and that there's such a power in that, I think, when people really talk from the heart rather than all the jolly banter that you get in your ADT.
Yeah, completely. And yeah, there's authenticity, there's clarity. It's one of the best things you can do. And spreading the word, which is what you guys do, is fantastic. Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, you too. Talk about your plans for the future. What's happening in Nigel land? Loads, as usual. Tell us then. Tell us everything.
I'm really driving the hypnotherapy forward. I went back to university to do that like last year. And so now I'm qualified. I've spent this year really building that and just enjoying it, really, enjoying working with people, both on a one-to-one and a group basis. I'm working not just on habit change, but loads of things. So I work on weight loss, anxiety, phobias. So I'm seeing quite a lot of clients at the moment with fear of flying and all sorts of stuff. So that's really interesting. But obviously I have to do lots of work on the habit change side. I'm a champion of Alcohol Change UK, so I'm working closely with them as well. And my previous life, I still run a sports marketing agency. So working with Alcohol Change UK, helping them promote Dry January to the sporting world as well,
Yeah.
which is something I'm proud of and working on. There is another book which I am writing, which is on time travel. I did allude to it a bit early on in the conversation about using the power of NLP to go into the future, to change your future, and also to go back into the past, regress back into the past to things that might have happened to you in your childhood that are still playing out in your life today. You can go back there, change it, and then literally it will be gone and your life will change.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I've read books on NLP, but they're very technical. So I think there's a real niche there for something readable and explaining the power of NLP in a non-technical way, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I do it as well is I literally say to all clients and also via this book that I'm writing as well, that you can do all this stuff on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to sit with someone and let them help you get there. There is only self-hypnosis. But all a hypnotherapist does is help you get into hypnosis, into the
Yes.
hypnosis state. You're doing it to yourself. So yeah, it's interesting times. So I think summary what I'm doing, there's a book, there's the coaching, and I'm speaking at a few writing festivals this year. A lot of people have said to me, I'd like to write a book. And I know how to write a book. I've done it. I went through
Yes.
all the journey of doing this. And so I've just launched a new coaching program, which is the 9-step process to go from blank page to bestseller.
Awesome. So how can people contact you?
So where I am is my business is called 9km by 9am. So that's the website, 9km by 9am.com. And that's the same handle on all the socials like Insta and Facebook and Twitter.
And people can buy your books from there, and they're on Amazon.
So yeah,
Okay.
Walking Back to Happiness, The Secret to Alcohol
Yeah,
Treatment.
I love the title. It says everything, doesn't it? There's some nice book titles around. I've always loved The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
And the other one I love is We Are the Luckiest by Laura McCowan. Let me ask you last question. If someone's listening to this and they're really stuck in their drinking, a bit like we were years ago, and they can't really imagine how they're going to get the willpower, they probably still believe it's willpower, how they're going to change things, what would you say to encourage them?
I'd say literally it's all about perception versus perspective. It really is. So I'd put two chairs in a room, and one of the chairs would be you as a drinker, and the other chair would be you as a non-drinker. And sit in the chair of you and actually just talk out loud about how great you think drinking is. And then all the upsides, and maybe if you think there are any downsides as well. And then go and sit in the other chair and do this, answer the same questions. But now you're a non-drinker and really believe you are one as well. That gives you perspective, and you'll see immediately different answers coming out. And the tip is this. The tip is not to ask your current self the answers to your questions your mind is throwing up. Ask your future self, because your future self is the future you, and it knows the answers that you want. And so if it's only by asking the future self, shall I have a drink? They're going to say no. If you ask the future self, you've got the answer. So don't ask the current self, ask the future self, the guy in the other chair, because he'll basically be your best ally. He'll be your best confidant, and he'll give you the answers that you really need, which will take you to your destiny, take you through your new habit of non-drinking.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's also an NLP technique, isn't it? Sitting somewhere else to help you to get in the perspective of someone else's point of view or your future self. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You don't just have to have two chairs. You could have three or four.
Yeah.
And you could put in the other chair your child or your dad or your partner. Ask them what they think. So get their perspective.